The immersive sim really is a genre unlike any other, letting players navigate environments and handle objectives pretty much however they see fit. And I mean, we've seen some pretty fantastic games come out of the genre, ones like System Shock, Deus Ex, Bioshock, Dishonored, and of course, Prey. And I've always felt like Prey really stood out over the rest of those, taking the MSim genre to new heights, and that's not really a pun about it being in space.
Which it is.
And I remember seeing that reveal trailer during the 2016 E3, when E3 was still a thing, and just being excited about whatever the hell it was that I was watching, if only because it had that Arkane name tied to it. Even when lined up with the other releases of 2017, the year that gave us plenty of all-timers like Breath of the Wild, Resident Evil 7, and who can forget Mass Effect Andromeda.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
Prey still manages to stand out for just being a really smart, well-written, and engaging game.
Perfection.
Developed by Arkane Austin, the same folks behind Dishonored, Prey really feels like a mashup between Dishonored and System Shock, with a little bit of Bioshock mixed in for good measure. Taking place on the Talos 1 space station, Prey sees you playing as Morgan Yu, Vice President of TranStar and lead researcher of Talos 1, as you try to make your way off the station, which has been infested by the Typhon, an alien race that was being researched there. And along the way, you'll do side quests to learn more about the station, get supplies, and just try to be helpful to the people who have somehow managed to not get exploded, sucked into the vacuum of space, or have their very life essence sucked out by a coffee mug.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
And upon starting the game, you can really feel the influences from those other games. I mean, in Bioshock, you have that dramatic reveal of Rapture, then in Prey, you have the dramatic reveal that you're on a space station, not some swanky flat in the city. Then there's the setting, Talos 1, being just like the Citadel station in System Shock. And there's even a voice of questionable motives on the radio telling you what to do and where to go, a lot like Atlas in Bioshock.
Take a deep breath and step out of the bathysphere. I won't leave you twisting in the wind.
If you want to know what's going on, first, you need to get out of your apartment building. You're not safe.
And in all three games, your player character comes into the situation after whatever event took place, leading to that place's downfall. In System Shock, it was Shodan having its ethical restraints removed. In Bioshock, it was Civil War. And in Prey, it was the Typhon escaping containment. Cause yeah, who could have seen that coming?
I am shocked. I am shocked. That's what I mean. I am appalled.
And again, like in System Shock and Bioshock, a lot of the narrative comes from finding voice recordings and notes you find on corpses and around the environment, giving you details on both the day-to-day lives of people, as well as gradually piecing together what happened during and after the outbreak. Bioshock and Prey also see the player character getting a wrench as a starter weapon, and then finding out that the place they're stuck at isn't just completely remote, but is on the verge of literal collapse. And if it weren't for the threat of being murdered by an alien or being ejected into the cold, uncaring expanse of space, Talos 1 is a pretty gorgeous environment to be stuck in. I mean, just aesthetically, it has the same sort of Art Deco vibe that Rapture had, except they've integrated it with some more contemporary and futuristic tech. You can still find areas with ashtrays, leather sofas, and whiskey glasses, like some sort of 1930s era lounge, but then there are drones flying around, desktop computers, and 3D printers. It's just the sort of place where functionality meets grand opulence. Like, they really did want to do valuable research here, but at the same time, they gave the architects and interior designers blank checks and carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. And I mean, it's not like the whole world looks like that, because at the start of the game, you can see a simulation of the city, and it looks more or less like you'd expect a futuristic city to look like, or hell, even just what a city looks like now. And aside from those Art Deco looking environments like offices and lounges, Talos 1 also consists of laboratories, mechanical shops, and even an arboretum, really harkening back to Arcadia from Bioshock.
On the surface, I once bought...
Even the way they've depicted space and Earth look great, with Earth having lights you can see, sort of reminding you of the humanity that you're fighting for. And I think Arkane's games like Prey and Dishonored really have art styles that make them kinda timeless, going for a more stylized look rather than an extremely realistic depiction of environments. And that extends into how NPCs look, with the same art style that they had in Dishonored, where humans look almost like cartoons instead of being as realistically rendered as they could for the time, which, let me remind you, was 2017, so sometimes they look like this. It's worth mentioning too that Prey has some fantastic music to go alongside the visuals, with most of the tracks being produced by old Mick Gordon himself, the guy more famously known for Doom and Doom Eternal. And while this isn't the same heavy metal that Doom had, you can definitely tell it's his work, because it has the same sort of electronic techno bass that a lot of the tracks that Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal had. Some of the tracks were even worked on by the game's director, Rafael Colantonio, and they all just feel really at place in this world. Not just the fully voiced tracks, but the combat music, as well as the music that plays during exploration, which really amps up tension. I mean, even when I felt like I should have been in a relatively safe area, the music kept me paranoid. And like, not to beat a dead horse, but replaying this reminded me of how Mick Gordon was kind of a main part of Bethesda, doing not just the music for Doom and Doom Eternal, but also for Prey and the Machine Games Wolfenstein series. Of course, being an immersive sim, Prey is all about finding ways to navigate Talos 1, as well as choosing how to engage the Typhon. And I think when it comes to exploration, Prey is still as good as it gets. Sticking with the play your way philosophy that Dishonored had, Talos 1 is sort of like this massive puzzle box waiting to be solved where there's not one single solution. I mean, right off the bat, the game lets you know about a door that can be hacked, unlocked with a keycode nearby, or circumvented altogether with a crawl space. And that extends through the whole game. For the rest of the runtime, you'll be given objectives that can be solved in a variety of ways, really letting you put the tools and abilities the game gives you to the test. You can throw heavy objects around to bypass doorways, use a dart gun to shoot otherwise unreachable buttons or screens, and hack pretty much any electronic device you can get your hands on, with a minigame that doesn't involve turning around a bunch of circuits or tubes. Yet, thank God. And that's just a few of the options you get before you get your hands on the Typhon powers. Cause yeah, after a while you'll get the ability to give yourself alien abilities, ranging from interacting with objects from a distance to giving yourself a sort of teleportation, similar to Blink from Dishonored. And exploration is really enhanced by the fact that Talos 1 is one seamless environment. I mean, there are loading screens, sure, but it all feels congruent with each area of the station being logically tied to the rest, really giving every location a sense of belonging. And all of these can pretty much be traveled to at any point in time by just heading there. Prey even goes so far as to let you leave the station and float around it to enter another area that you've unlocked. There's even a functional elevator that travels up and down the station, allowing you to quickly move between a few of the areas. And funny enough, this space that robs you of your gear also has one of the best jump scares in video games. I mean, this genuinely scared the piss out of me. It's also worth mentioning that as you explore and find corpses, they're all named, and you can actually find registries of all the employees aboard the Talos 1. So you can actually locate every single person here, making the whole place feel even more real and making the notes and recordings you find feel a lot more meaningful.
Hey, a little bird told me you plugged a leak in an unconventional manner a few weeks ago.
Yeah? Was it an ass-kissing bird named Krasikov?
Maybe. Care to elaborate?
Not if I'm going to get my pee-pee slapped.
So all of that is just to kind of say that exploration in Prey is fun, rewarding, and most importantly, immersive. Of course, there's also the combat side of things, and combat in Prey is pretty good. Combat in Prey mostly comes down to you blasting your way through the Typhon with a couple of firearms and a variety of Typhon abilities, just like how Bioshock had guns and plasmids. Prey only features a couple of traditional firearms, those being the pistol and the shotgun. And both of these are a lot of fun to use, with the pistol having low damage but a high rate of fire, as well as an integrated suppressor, great for stealth attacks.
Goddamn thing I'm sure isn't a mimic. You?
The shotgun is your standard pump-action boomstick, but honestly, it's a lot of fun to use, and really became my go-to offensive weapon.
Vital signs critical.
There's also the Q-beam, a sort of laser gun capable of exploding enemies, as well as the Disruptor, this sort of stun gun great for robots and some Typhon. And alongside the actual guns are the offensive Typhon abilities, like a telekinetic blast, an electric attack, and a fire attack. And these really do act a lot like the plasmids from Bioshock, where in that game you also had a telekinetic attack, a fire attack, and an electric attack.
Give them a combo. Zap them, then whack them. 1-2 punch. Remember, the 1-2 punch.
And I think if I had to critique the combat in any way, I do wish that there were more firearms to use. I think that when you get into fights, utilizing the shotgun, the pistol, and the different Typhon abilities together is a lot of fun and really does feel reminiscent of Bioshock. So I guess I just kind of wish that there were more traditional guns to use, you know, like the machine gun or the grenade launcher.
Perfection.
But I actually think that the most interesting weapons in the game aren't the ones that are really weapons at all, those being the Gloo cannon and the recycler charge. The Gloo cannon is this sort of rifle that launches this white foam that can incapacitate enemies, as well as be used to put out fires, stop arcing electricity, and most importantly, be used to create platforms to navigate the environments. And this thing is easily the single most useful tool at your disposal, because it can kinda do a little bit of everything. And I'm honestly surprised something like this made it past the cutting room floor, because it had to be an absolute pain in the ass to design around. And I don't mean in terms of allowing the player to, use it for any situation, but this thing had to have broken the game by letting people bypass areas, get into places that they really shouldn't, and just overall be a downright nuisance to level designers. Then there's the recycler charge, a sort of grenade that reduces whatever gets caught in its suck range into their most basic components, whether that be random objects or whatever poor Typhon happens to be nearby.
Holy moly.
I mean, getting exploded by a grenade sounds horrific enough, but I honestly can't think of a worse sounding way to go than getting fucking recycled. And look, there's definitely some sort of joke to be made here about getting caught in a suck radius and shooting a viscous white foam, but I'm not going to be making it here, alright? We're adults. But to get back to the recycler charge, the whole point of recycling anything is that you can actually use those components at a fabricator, which is basically a 3D printer that can make anything. You can print weapons, ammo, health items, and even some key items at certain points. And the recycler device, which recycles whatever you put in it, along with the recycler charge and the fabricator, are just super smart ways to allow the player to get supplies in a lore-friendly way. Cause like, it wouldn't make much sense for the station to have an entire stockpile of weapons and ammo, like they're expecting a war or something, but it does kind of make sense for them to recycle literally everything and just produce items as they're needed. You know, waste not, want not. A little ways into the game too, you'll also receive the Psychoscope, which really is like Prey's version of the research camera from Bioshock, being able to identify enemies and even unlock abilities based on the type of enemy that you scan. And all of your abilities are purchased with Neuromods, which are essentially this game's version of plasmids and Atom, with, you know, the abilities being plasmids and Neuromods being Atom. There's even sort of a version of Eve in the form of Psi, with it even being something that you apparently inject straight into your veins, you know, like you did with Eve. I want to mention too that these things require you to give yourself a sort of lobotomy straight through your eye. And the way your player character does this is by sticking the needle directly into their eye, rather than placing the neuromod, you know, up to their eye and then poking the needle in, which feels kinda like the right way to do it. I don't know, man. I guess I'm just trying to say that this looks like the worst thing ever. Anyway, these neuromods can make you smarter, faster, stronger, and with Typhon DNA, you can also use telekinesis, cause kinetic and EMP blasts, make machines work for you, and even turn yourself into inanimate objects like boxes or cups.
Impressive. Very nice.
And I mean, compare that to the plasmids in Bioshock, which also let you do things like use telekinesis, start fires, make machines work for you, and summon bees. Yeah, bees.
Not the bees! Not the bees!
And you'll use these to sort of get a build going, you know, like being able to repair everything you come across or being able to move heavy objects out of the way. And in combat, you can increase the effectiveness of weapons and use those Typhon abilities I mentioned, like the telekinetic blasts. They all have utility in combat and exploration and allow you to, you know, sort of get a build going, really feeding back into that whole play your way design philosophy. But getting back to the combat, it's definitely worth mentioning the enemy lineup, because Prey really does have a lot to offer. They're the Phantoms, which kind of look like people, mainly because they're sort of the remnants of corpses made by other Typhon. And these guys actually come in a few different forms, those being regular, voltaic, thermal, and etheric. And they work a lot like how they sound. Regular ones are your bog standard enemies, thermal ones attack with fire, voltaic use electricity and can actually disable your tech weapons, and etheric can duplicate and leave behind this toxic cloud when they die. There are also weavers that can produce these little exploding critters, technopaths that can control local robots, telepaths that can control still living humans, and poltergeists that are invisible and throw furniture at you.
They're here.
Lastly, there's the Nightmare and the Mimics. Now, the Nightmare is this hulking Typhon that appears more and more the more Typhon neuromods that you give yourself. And you can either hide until it leaves the area, fight it, or if you complete a certain side quest, you can actually use a specific frequency to drive it away. But the absolute best enemy in the game, and maybe one of the best enemies in any game, is the Mimic. These little guys can become any inanimate object in the entire game, waiting for you to approach before scaring the absolute pants off you. And like, you'd think that the gimmick of the mimic would wear off after a few times, but not, man, it really becomes a core part of exploring the station. Because as you play, you really start to develop a sense of paranoia. All of a sudden, walking past a desk with 2 mugs or 2 chairs immediately sets you to DEFCON 1 as you start whacking whatever feels off with the wrench.
I fucking knew it! Oh!
And I mean, it just makes to where even those more quiet moments, you know, where you're just wandering around, are moments where you can just be set on edge, looking out for objects that don't quite belong.
Welcome to Fort Frolic.
I think when you look back at Bioshock, Fort Frolic is easily the best area in that game, tying together the exploration, the combat, and the storytelling into an extremely fun and engaging level.
Oh God, you sick fuck, let me out of there!
And I actually think that Prey has a bit of a similar area with the crew quarters. It's here where you'll be tasked with getting a voice sample from Danielle Show to open up a door to deep storage. Danielle Show? Yeah, I wonder where they got that name.
This is Shodan, the station's AI. She controls just about every system on Citadel Station.
Anyway, you'll be able to get that password through a variety of ways, from collecting voice samples through transcribes to going and getting voice sample from a nearby club that shows Sangat. And I mean, not only does this optional encounter absolutely rule with a pretty great track, but it also feels like a callback to that fight you have at Fort Frolic, where Sandra Cohen throws a total temper tantrum and sends a bunch of splicers to try and kill you. This is also the area where one of the more interesting side quests occur, with you meeting this crazed chef, Will Mitchell. You'll hear him pretty much immediately antagonizing some nearby mind control humans, and after you neutralize him, he'll ask you to go and get something from his cabin. And you'll immediately suss out that he's not who he says he is, and who he actually is some psychopath named Luka Golubkin, one of the testing volunteers aboard the Talos 1. And this guy will proceed to lock you in a freezer with his other victims, in a scene, again, reminiscent from the one from Fort Frolic.
Son of a bitch, left me to freeze.
But you can also just go ahead and kill him immediately, and Sho will even take notice, thanking you for avenging her partner.
He killed Abby. I'm guessing you're the reason his bracelet went red. I owe you one, and so does Abby.
So like, out of all the areas that you go to over the course of the game, I always thought that this one really was the standout, letting you use every ability at your disposal in some creative way, and showing off the multiple ways that you can handle any objective. I also think it's worth talking about the ending of Prey, since it's almost certain we'll never get a sequel at this point. At the end of the game, a massive Typhon entity shows up, threatening to just go ahead and finish off the station. And so you can either release a sort of bomb that will destroy all the Typhon DNA aboard the station, but potentially leaving Earth open to an invasion by the Typhon. Or you can destroy the station, killing yourself and everyone else on board, but ensuring that the Typhon never find Earth. There are other options like helping people leave in a shuttle and even escaping on your own with an escape pod, but there are still really only the 2 main endings. But either way, after you roll credits, you actually find out that this whole thing was a simulation. The invasion of Earth already happened, and you're a Typhon Transtar is trying to program to be more sympathetic with humans. Yeah, man, every person that you helped or didn't help was a test to see if the Typhon were capable of understanding humans. And I actually remember hating this ending when I first played it, thinking it felt like a total rug pull. But you know, I think I've actually grown to like this ending, with it really bringing together the themes of the whole game, like empathy, revenge, and what it means to be human. And speaking of a simulation, finally there's the DLC, Mooncrash. And to be completely honest with you, I actually didn't know Mooncrash was a thing until Deathloop came out, and a lot of people were comparing that to Prey Mooncrash. Mooncrash has you playing as a hacker as you enter a simulation of a moon base that was taken over by the Typhon. And it acts as a sort of roguelike, with you taking control of 5 different characters trying to get them off the moon in a variety of ways. You'll unlock abilities, gear, and information as you go along, with the eventual goal of getting all of them off the moon in a single run. And if at any point you die, the simulation resets and you try again. And all of the characters have different abilities and loadouts, really leaning into every playstyle that the main game had. Even though I haven't finished it yet, I definitely plan on playing more of this, just cause I found that loop of loading in, hunting for supplies and keys, and escaping however I can to be a lot of fun. Prey really does feel like the culmination of prior games from Arkane. You know, games like Arx Fatalis, Dishonored, and Dishonored 2. And every time I think about the MSim genre, Prey really is the first game that comes to mind, encapsulating everything that the genre offers. You know, levels that can be explored in a variety of ways, and objectives that can be completed however the player wants to complete them.
You fix? Smart.
Talos 1 is easily one of the coolest environments in gaming, and really feels like another great MSim environment like Rapture or Citadel Station. And it really is kind of a love letter to those games, Bioshock in particular, with the crew quarters feeling like a direct parallel to Fort Frolic.
It's beautiful.
And I think if I had to critique Prey in any way, it would be some really minor things. I do wish that there were more firearms to use, just cause enemies are a lot of fun to fight, so having more options to deal with them would have been a lot of fun. I also think it's a game that really benefits from a first-time playthrough where you really don't quite know what to expect. Cause while you can change out how you dish out Neuromods and, you know, change your build, the station is gonna remain the same each playthrough. You're gonna remember where all the keycards and the codes are, kinda stripping away one of the best aspects of the game, that being discovering everything for the first time. But look, man, Prey is one hell of a video game, and I think a lot of people are gonna be discussing for the rest of time what the best Arkane game was. And for me, it's probably Prey, just cause it feels like Arkane firing on all cylinders. I really do think that it'll stand the test of time, kinda the way that Bioshock has.
You're goddamn right.
And yeah, a good thing too, cause it's hard to really imagine getting a game like Prey made in current day, when every game has to bring in 100 million players or it's considered a failure or something.
You serious?
We have gotten other immersive sims, you know, like Gloomwood and Blood West, but not really any on the scale of something like Prey. So look, if you're one of the many people who never played Prey, there's never really been a better time to do it, except I guess when it came out.
No, he's got a point.
But it regularly goes on sale, and thanks to Xbox snatching up every studio under the sun, it's even on Game Pass. And if you haven't played it in a while, or, you know, didn't play the DLC like I didn't, consider this a reminder to go and play it right now. Cause Prey really is one of the best games that the MSim genre has to offer. And really, any game where the player character is under constant threat of being sucked off to death is definitely worth checking out.